Welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Heather Isfran, and with me today is David Fukutomi, Program Director for the Pacific Executive Leaders Program here at the Center, and he also serves as the Superintendent for the California Specialized Training Institute with the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Today we want to talk about our Pacific Executive Leaders Program, what it is, who should attend, and what they would actually learn in the classroom.
The Pacific Executive Leaders Program was funded by FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security to develop collaboration and executive leader skills in times of crisis in the Pacific. It's open to leaders in the public and private sector, not only in Hawaii, but the territories of American Samoa, Guam, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands.
And so you're looking for a great diversity of the islands and territories. And what is the curriculum designed to do?
So we provide a week of intense instruction, dialogue, and interaction in a number of topical issues related to Homeland Security and emergency management, and also areas of interest to leaders in the Pacific. Some are designed around group activities where we build upon the knowledge that they obtained during that session and that they've obtained professionally in their careers. Others, we bring in national level speakers to talk about things in a detailed fashion in an intimate setting. Also, we build themes around many of the topics to help develop collaborative skills. But perhaps the most important thing they get out of that is developing relationships that are durable, not only during the classroom, but when they go back to their day jobs, relationships they can build on. It is a professional and academic environment, but it's also casual and builds upon social activities, so that when they come out of there, they have lots of more friends than when they started the session.
And they would also have access to the resources and the alumni here at the center as well. So it's a huge network. And of course, we're all about relationships here at the center. So can you give me an example of how a relationship would work in terms of how would they bring that back to their agency and utilize a relationship like that?
Well, first, you hit it right on the head. They are part of the CHDS family once they attend the session. So they're not only allowed to or encouraged to interact with their classmates, but alumni of the entire program and faculty and alumni and resources of the entire center. When I talk to folks that have attended these sessions, every time I hear a story about how they used the relationships and or the information that they got during their time at our session in something they do on a daily basis. I'll give you an example. A representative from the private sector was assigned to go out and take some meetings out in the territories, and said, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know, I don't have any contacts out there." And then remembered, "Oh, wait a minute, I had 3 classmates from this territory and 2 from the other." Contacted his classmates. In a matter of days, he was able to put together a whole slate of meetings. So he was able to successfully accomplish his assignment. And these weren't just cold calls. These were referrals from his classmates who knew him, and so they were trusted agents. And anybody who spent any time in the Pacific knows, just like a lot of places in the world, relationships are very important, no more so than out in the Pacific.
And the challenges they face are very unique. And so what kinds of jurisdictions or disciplines are you looking for in the program?
We like to have a balance, representatives from a cross-section of every level of government, federal, state, territorial, and local, but also from the private sector. We've been blessed that we've had representation from the airlines, from the financial industry out there, and then a cross-section, as I mentioned, of agencies, very diverse representation of agencies at all levels of government across the Pacific. And we think that adds to the discussion. In addition to the content of our programs and the interaction, just those different perspectives helps everybody understand a little bit more about how things work in the Pacific.
And so when I'm thinking as a boss, and it's only a week session really, and the travel, it's actually located in Hilo. So I'm wondering what the challenges for the bosses would be. What have you heard would keep somebody from applying to the program?
Well, there's a psychological barrier about traveling out in the Pacific, there's great distances. That's one. The time away, we're dealing with a lot of agencies and departments that may only be one deep or a couple of people deep. So we're not talking about large numbers of employees in these agencies, and having somebody away for a week, could be a big imposition. So there's that challenge, and also sometimes just the natural reluctance anywhere of, well, I'm not qualified, they'll never consider me. So what we try to do is not only market the program in many different ways, but we leverage our alumni, not only of the prior sessions, but of the whole center, so that people get a one-on-one understanding about what the experience. Our alumni are our best recruiters, frankly. About 3/4 of the attendees tend to be referrals directly from alumni of the program.
And that's really common with our other programs as well, but probably more so in the Pacific. So when we're talking about the curriculum for the day, could you give me an outline of what a day might entail?
Sure. So what we try to do is build a little bit of a theme of a day of some larger thought. Sometimes we don't tell them in advance, but typically we'll mix a warm-up discussion, a couple of presentations, and then a group activity. So we're open with a discussion of what they heard the day before, and maybe some topical or headline that was in the news that evening or that morning. We'll do a kind of a serious subject in the morning, and then we'll do lunch, usually on site. So it's an opportunity for them to network not only with their fellow participants, but with the speakers and the faculty, which is an important part of the experience. In the afternoon, again, we cover a couple more topics, and we usually try to blend in another group activity. They start with a group activity. There's a group activity each day, and they end with a group activity, and the intent there is for them to build up to a presentation on the last day using not only the information they've obtained during the week, but from the experiences of their classmates, which are unique.
And we find here in the Masters and our Executive Leaders Program that the critical thinking is really important. And a lot of times what we hear, and I'm sure this is the same for the Pacific, is that most folks who are so busy and they're only 1 or 2 deep in their agencies don't have time to think about things. And so a benefit for a lot of our folks is to get away from the office, from that culture, and experience something new so they can think differently about the issues that they're facing. And so I wonder if you've seen that happen.
An important element is to think about this as an investment, both for the individual attending and for their boss or employer. And we impart critical thinking skills to help open the mind of the attendees. I like to say we practice sort of what we call mind expansion, and try to prepare everybody to accept different information about a topic they might be familiar with or think a little bit differently. So the employer, the boss, gets back somebody who spent an intense week learning about different topics, about mind expansion, complex problem solving, and who now has a rich network of contacts to which they can apply to their daily job. Hardly a discussion goes by with an alumni of our program that doesn't start off with something that they learned, that they applied, or about interaction with their fellow classmates from one of the sessions. It's really gratifying and impressive to hear how they're able to do that, oftentimes without realizing that. And sometimes it helps tackle complex problems on a daily basis back at the office. Just coming back, it's kind of like a vacation, only for your mind, with a fresh perspective and maybe a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and so keeping the alumni in mind, you have what, maybe 80, 120?
About 100 right now.
Yep. And so they stay in contact with each other, is that right?
We try to encourage them. We provide tools through the center, just like every alumni of every program here. But a lot of them do it informally through the emails and talking to other classmates. And like I said, the other advantage of that is 3/4 of our attendees are direct references or recruits from the alumni. So that tells me they value the experience and that they're using those contacts on a regular basis.
So the weeks are usually offered in January and March?
Traditionally, we've offered the sessions in January and March. tradition as much as anything, but it will also try to accommodate cultural and seasonal challenges out in the Pacific and give everybody different opportunity to attend. Again, the distances and the travel and the fact that people wear many different hats out there create challenges. So we try to accommodate them around that.
And the application is pretty simple.
The application is a lot simpler than people think. We need a little bit of information about you. We want to know what you do on a daily basis. What's the relevancy of your job. We need acknowledgement and permission from your employer, and then we use that information to evaluate your application and put together a balanced cohort.
Tell me, what kinds of speakers do you have? Are they Pacific only or national, international?
Well, a cross-section, and it's important that individuals or folks understand the speakers that we're bringing out there, the faculty that we have on site, they're exactly the same as if they were here in Monterey. National level, academic speakers and topics, so that we've basically replicated Monterey and Hilo twice a year. So you're getting you're not getting an inferior product, and that's a myth that kind of is perceived out there sometimes. Although we do incorporate a great deal of Pacific-specific information, it's part of this experience is to get them to think about things a little bit more globally, if you would, in a larger context, and how other events around the world or across the nation relate to them in the Pacific. What are the impacts? What are the consequences?
Well, it's a successful program and running for how many years now?
This will be the 4th iteration that we've done, and we're building a rich network of alumni out in the Pacific. And again, that goes back to the original intent when FEMA approached the center to put this program together, is they wanted to develop a culture of collaboration and preparedness amongst leaders at all levels out in the Pacific. And I think we're having some measurable success out there in that regard.
Wonderful. Well, if you'd like to apply to our program, you can get the application on our website, www.chds.us, and you can always contact us with more questions. We hope you'll apply. Well, thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you, Heather.